All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and I wanted to have a little fun before we get to this round 2 and 3 of the draft tonight, which of course I'll be live streaming the entire thing. We have 2 seconds and 3/3. I was already going to live stream it even if we only had 1 pick each round, but we have 5 picks tonight. So I'm going to be live streaming all the way from the beginning to the very end. I mean, we literally have the last pick of the 3rd round right now. Today, I want to do a fun exercise and take a look at a lot of pro comps for all of the best players available in this 2024 NFL draft, day 2 of this NFL draft specifically. And we got to take a look at who Washington is targeting. I'm gonna give you the updates on guys that we are reportedly interested in, who we've had top 30 visits with each one of these top players. And I have everybody broken up into different tiers. So we have some guys that shouldn't be here, should have went in the 1st round, and they're at positions of need. Then we have some guys that shouldn't be here but aren't necessarily at positions of need, but I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that they do exist if you really just want to go best player available and completely ignore need. And then we have guys, they're exactly where they're supposed to be. You're supposed to take them 36th or 40th overall. Then there's some guys where it's like maybe you trade back into later, like middle towards the later of the 2nd round that you want to get. And then we have some wait until the 3rd round or later guys that we should get that we have strong interest in, top 30 visits or whatever. So we're going to dive into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, and still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Again, stay tuned because I will be live streaming the entire day 2 of the 2024 NFL draft tonight. That's rounds 2 and 3. I will also be live streaming tomorrow, Saturday, rounds 4 and 5 at the very least. So stay tuned for that as well. And make sure you follow all of the social medias, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that, man. Make sure you stay tuned. I'm doing breakdowns for every single player that we draft on top of film sessions for every player that we draft as well. So each player that the Commanders bring in, I'm going to at least be doing 2 videos for each guy, maybe even more, because a guy like Jayden deserves more than 1 film session. So I'm super excited. And even some undrafted free agents, I'm going to keep y'all updated on those once those start coming in after the draft. And I'll probably do some breakdowns on some of those guys for the notable ones. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with the highest tier, the best blend of they shouldn't be here in this 2nd round. They should have gone in the 1st round, and we also need them. That's why we have different tiers. We have 5 different tiers. This is the highest one. That's where we're going to address it first. So first of all, and not in any particular order in this tier, I have, like, within each tier, there's no order, but the tiers are definitely in order themselves. You have defensive back Cooper DeJean. I think he's literally CJ Garner-Johnson. He's a little weird because it's kind of like, is he a corner? Is he a safety? He came in as a safety and looked really good at that, but then due to need, he ended up moving the corner and he excelled at that as well. And I just think if you want a Cooper DeJean, you just take him and you figure it out later. He's such a great player. He's easily a 1st round talent. He should not still be here in the 2nd round. And with us having the 36th overall pick, we have a great chance to get any of the guys that we're going to talk about in this tier. Really, everybody in this video, we have an honest chance of getting. It's actually really crazy that some of these guys are still available. And Cooper DeJean is definitely one of those guys where I'm just like, wow, I thought he could go as high as somewhere in the teens of the draft, let alone still being here in the 2nd round. That could end up being a huge steal, whoever gets him. And I trust Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr., whatever it takes. I mean, you can argue we need corner. You can argue we need a little bit of safety as well. And I just feel like you bring in Cooper DeJean, and no matter where you have him, I mean, maybe you can look at him like a baby Minka. I mean, wherever you need to put him, just put him there and watch him ball out. You draft him now, you sprint to the podium and get him, and you worry about the rest later. And again, I trust this defensive staff to get the best out of him, because Deron Bland, a 5th round pick, doesn't lead the NFL in interceptions and set a record for pick 6s in a season for no reason. A 5th round rookie, that doesn't just happen. I'm not expecting Deron Bland to necessarily fall off a cliff now that we took Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. from the Cowboys, but I'm not expecting him to be that anymore because I felt like Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. did the best job humanly possible to put him into positions to make those type of plays. That's why I'm expecting Emmanuel Forbes to ascend this upcoming season because I think they're going to use him in a very similar role that Trevon Diggs and Deron Bland like to do. So Cooper DeJean, bring him here. Super athlete, super high ceiling guy. Maybe some coaches are lazy and don't want to figure out what position he's best at. I trust this coaching staff to do that. He's a ball of clay. Bring him in, watch him ball out, no matter what you ask him to do. It could even change from game to game. Maybe one game he's like your slot corner. Maybe some games he's your strong safety, your free safety. I just throw him out there on the field. He's going to make plays. Next up, we have cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry, of course, from Alabama. To me, he's literally AJ Terrell. Westlake was Haddon. You know what I'm saying? That's why I've always been rooting for AJ Terrell since he even left Westlake High School. And I mean, literally AJ Terrell, Pro Bowl corner, all over the place, all of the traits that you need. I feel like literally the only thing he needs to work on is like not getting beat deep. That's really it. Then sometimes bigger receivers can make contested catches on him occasionally. Outside of that, he's perfect. I mean, you want a press man corner, he can do that. You want an off coverage corner, he can do that. You want to run match coverage, you want to run zone coverage. Kool-Aid McKinstry is so versatile and so battle tested playing at Alabama against all of those great SEC wide receivers, man. I feel like you can't miss with him either. I really don't. Maybe you could argue Cooper DeJean has a higher ceiling, but Kool-Aid McKinstry easily has a higher floor and a more easily defined role. Put him at outside corner, and no matter what system you run defensively, you can ask him to go and cover the best receiver on the other team a lot of the time. I really do believe that. So, hey man, Kool-Aid McKinstry, if the Commanders want to go there, I know we do have Emmanuel Forbes, who again I feel like is going to step into like a Deron Bland, Trevon Diggs like role under Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn. But we still need that other corner. Now, Benjamin St-Juste, decent. If he goes back to his 2022 self under better coaching and development, that could end up playing out very well for us as like a long corner. Michael Davis that we brought over for the Chargers, if he can go back to his 2022 self, he was arguably one of the most underrated corners in all of football in 2022. If we can get him back there, he can be good there as well. But Kool-Aid McKinstry is the guy that you get for the future, because who knows if we even want to re-sign Benjamin St-Juste long term. Who knows? I mean, Michael Davis is on a 1-year prove-it deal. Who knows if we re-sign him? So bring in Kool-Aid McKinstry. Him and Emmanuel Forbes are your franchise corner of the future. I would love to keep Benjamin St-Juste long term if it works out, but I'm not sure if it necessarily will. We'll see. And of course, you know I had to talk about my boy, wide receiver Ladd McConkey from Georgia. I think he's literally a prime Victor Cruz as a floor, and I think he's a not crazy Antonio Brown as a ceiling. I'm very high on him. I'm telling y'all, you'll see. I really hope if he doesn't go to the Commanders, which I don't necessarily think is likely because we already have a bunch of fast, shifty receivers. I think they're more likely to go with a bigger receiver if they're going to do it. But I think that I'm hoping that he goes to a really good team where he can really showcase how great he is, because I'm telling you, this is a first round guy easily, in my opinion. I wish the Chiefs would have taken him, but I definitely see the argument for an Xavier Worthy because they're trying to turn him into the next Tyreek Hill. But Ladd McConkey, man, please go to a great team. I'm hoping the Bills just straight up take him 33rd overall, and that's their star receiver to replace Stephon Diggs. I'm telling you right now, he has it in him. Moving on, you also have wide receiver Adonai Mitchell. Of course, he's coming from Texas University technically, but this is a Georgia dog through and through, man. He helped us win both of those championships. He's always a Georgia Bulldog to me, and to me, his comp is literally faster CeeDee Lamb. But apparently there's some character issues coming out lately. There's some motivational issues. There's some attitude issues or something like that. Who knows if these are just random draft rumors that got started just to literally plummet his stock so that he could make it to the second round. But this is a first round talent easily, through and through. Everybody in this category is a first round talent. Argue with a wall, man. Adonai Mitchell, it is crazy that he's still, again, I literally see him as a faster CeeDee Lamb, a higher ceiling CeeDee Lamb. You saw how he killed the combine. I know receiver may not necessarily be one of our biggest needs, but it's still a need. And when we're talking about best players available that shouldn't be here, Adonai Mitchell fits that. And most importantly, yeah, we have Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, but we don't have an Adonai Mitchell. We don't have a guy that's 6'3", 6'4", go up and make every catch possible no matter the situation. We have a bunch of fast, get open, shifty guys. Now, Terry McLaurin is still a really good contested catch receiver, especially for his size. But Adonai Mitchell is just a whole different specimen. He's a completely different type of receiver. I would love to go and get a big receiver right here. Again, receiver isn't necessarily our biggest need. Obviously, tackle is our biggest need, but I don't think there's any tackle worth taking unless you trade backwards into the second round, or maybe even wait until the third round. There's no tackle. Absolutely no tackle. Maybe Kinsley Samataya. We can talk about him. I have him in the category of where they are supposed to be, so maybe him. Somewhere at 40th at earliest, definitely not 36th overall. We'll get to that category later. But tackle wise, even though it is our biggest need, there's nobody worth taking 36th overall at all to me. And maybe Kingsley is the only guy that you can argue is worth even taking at 40. And even then, I would probably trade back to get him. So again, tackle's our biggest need, but there's just no players available this high, especially 36th overall, that are worth taking right there. So I think you go best player available. Speaking of best player available, sticking with this same tier of shouldn't still be here, should have gone in the first round, and at a position that we technically do need. You have safety Tyler Nubin, and I've been seeing a lot of people saying that he's basically literally a baby Earl Thomas. And hey, if anybody would love to get an Earl Thomas, it would be Dan Quinn, who put together that Legion of Boom for the Seattle Seahawks. That fit would be perfect. And now, of course, I want us to just go ahead and get all-pro safety Justin Simmons after the draft. And maybe, just maybe, they are planning on doing that. I've already explained in 4 distinct reasons in my mock draft a couple of days ago as to why Justin Simmons coming to the Commanders not only makes a lot of sense, but it seems like it's literally destined to happen. So maybe they don't go safety this early in the draft because they plan on getting Justin Simmons after the draft. I'm really hoping, and again, I did a full breakdown on the logic about us having the cap space. It's the perfect fit for him. He's the perfect player for us. I did a whole in-depth breakdown. If you want to go check that out, it's at the end of my final what I think the Commanders should do mock draft, which came out a couple of mornings ago. But Tyler Nubin definitely should have been taken in the first round. Then linebacker Peyton Wilson. To me, he's literally Devin Lloyd. I feel like he's easily a round 1 linebacker. There's just injury concerns, I guess. But to me, he's linebacker 1 in this class. Easily. My linebacker 2 is Junior Colson. We'll get to him a little bit later in one of the other tiers. But Peyton Wilson, I feel like is easily a first round talent. Whoever ends up getting him gotta steal, no matter where you get him as of this point in the second round. And granted, we do have Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, and Jamin Davis, but hey man, Jamin Davis is moving to more like a Micah Parsons-like role. You can't even necessarily consider him an off-ball linebacker at this point. We'll see. It may not be full-blown Micah Parsons where he's rushing the passer as often, let alone as effectively, but still, he's going to be more of a going after the quarterback rather than stopping the run and going into coverage type of guy. And then you also have Frankie Louvu for the long term. Love him. And I love Bobby Wagner, but we signed him to a 1-year deal for a reason. He's getting up there in age. We do need the successor of a Bobby Wagner who's going to be in that middle stop in the run, sideline to sideline speed, great in coverage, quarterback of the defense. I think Peyton Wilson and Junior Colson, we'll get to him later, can literally be that for us. Those are my 2 favorite linebackers in this class. You also have another guy in Edgerrin Cooper. We'll also get to him as well later on. And then lastly, in this category of guys that should have gone in the first round at positions that we need, I have my cornerback, Kamari Lassiter from Georgia. To me, he's literally James Bradbury, I think potentially even better. He's literally the best cornerback Kirby Smart has ever had since he's taken over at Georgia. I still don't understand how other people don't see him as a first round pick. I know he tested terribly at the combine, but if you look at the tape, he was easily one of the best, arguably the best corner coming out of this draft last year. It's absolutely, there was just nobody. His ball skills are ridiculous. He knows how to get his head turned around once the ball is in the air. He knows how to read the receiver. Literally a shutdown corner. Literally. It got to a point where teams were even afraid to throw it his way. Completely shut down corner. Now let's move on to the next category. These are the people that should have gone in the first round, should not be here in the second round, but we don't necessarily need. So of course you have defensive tackle Johnny Newton. I think he's literally Javon Hargrove, but Again, we don't necessarily need defensive tackle unless you plan on trading either Jonathan Allen or Deron Payne. It wouldn't make sense to go defensive tackle in the second round, especially 36th overall right now. But this guy's easily a first-round talent. A lot of people feel like he's the best defensive tackle in this class, easily a top 5 defensive lineman in general, even if you throw in edge rushers. Then you have center Jackson Powers Johnson. A lot of people compare him to Creed Humphrey. We don't necessarily need center. We just spent all of that money on Tyler Biadasz. We didn't pay him like ridiculous money, but we paid him starting center money, and he's on like a 3-year deal. So we're assuming he's our starting center. He's a very solid center. Very happy to have him. So we don't need a Jackson Powers Johnson, but he is a guy that should have gone in the first round. But then again, the center position is incredibly devalued right now, so I'm not really surprised, but he's a first round talent. Pro Bowl level type of guy. And then guard Cooper Beebe, to me, is literally like a heavier, raw version of Joel Bettino, or Joel Bettino, however you pronounce it, man. And you can argue kinda we do need to worry about guard, but we do have Chris Paul, and then we brought over my boy Allegretti from the Chiefs, but was a backup for those guys. He stepped up big time for them in the postseason, especially the Super Bowl, but he was really a backup for the majority of his time there. So I'm still not exactly sure about him. Of course, we have Samuel Cosmi, who I think has all-pro potential at right guard. Arguably the best player on our entire roster last year, the second half of the season. Is like literally should have the highest rating of any player on our roster. I love Terry McLaurin. I love Jonathan Allen, those guys. Samuel Cosmi is that guy at right guard for me. Like, you literally build around Sam Howell. You go ahead and pay him long-term, in my opinion, as soon as possible before that price goes up. And then again, on that left guard spot, I guess you have Chris Paul, who looks like he's a pretty high ceiling, decent starter that still has some work to do as far as refining his technique. And then we also brought in Allegretti, who comes in with a decent high floor. So you don't necessarily think we need guard, but Cooper Beebe, Joel Bettino, it's kind of like, why not? We're talking about best players available right here through those first 2 tiers. Should have been first round picks. But again, of course, the reason he's in this tier with Johnny Newton and Jackson Powers Johnson, not necessarily a need for us, but you can always use a better player, an elite first round player that you can get in the second round. That's always a thing. Now, let's move on to the next tier. We have a bunch of guys that are where they are exactly supposed to be. With the 36th pick, with the 40th overall pick, that's where you take these guys, and they're at positions of need. Wide receiver Roman Wilson, I literally comped them to a faster KJ Osborne. Literally faster, more explosive, higher ceiling KJ Osborne. And there's been several reports of reported interest about the Commanders wanting Roman Wilson. He didn't come in for a top 30 visit or anything, but we did go to his pro day. We met with him at the combine, all of those type of things, and they apparently love this guy. Do not be surprised if we go Roman Wilson at 36th or 40th overall. Already did a full in-depth breakdown of his strengths and weaknesses, advanced stats, how like he's just a ridiculously underrated receiver in this draft class in my mock draft that I did yesterday morning, if you want to go check that out. But I'm just letting you know now, this guy could come in and ball out for us. Jayden Daniels, the best slot fade thrower in all of college football, and Roman Wilson, arguably the best deep down the field threat in the slot out of this entire draft class, is a match made in heaven. I can see that happening. Of course, I would prefer a bigger receiver, but Roman Wilson could be great for us, man. Him, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, we're just throwing deep bombs all day. And then now you also have a bigger, speaking of bigger wide receiver Keon Coleman from Florida State. Honestly, to me, and it's kind of a stretch because he's still raw in a lot of areas, but if he reaches his ceiling, if he can put it all together, I think he could be Courtland Sutton for the same reasons that I said that I think we may want to look at Adonai Mitchell. Same reason with Keon Coleman. We don't have any big receivers. He's a big receiver that makes highlight contested catches. Pretty inconsistent, but he's a guy that we may want to target right there. And it makes sense that he's still there, available 36th or 40th overall. And then you have edge Adiza Isaac. I think he's literally Leonard Floyd. Now, maybe that's just a Georgia Bulldog in me, but I think he literally has the potential to be a Leonard Floyd. I think he could be a great player. Chop Robinson, his Penn State teammate, is the guy with the highest ceiling, but the way lower floor. I think his best season in college was 5.5 sacks. Adiza Isaac was the one out there producing for Penn State and actually getting the sacks, getting all of the pressures and things like that. And so he's basically the higher floor, but not as high of a ceiling. Chop Robinson. He still has some room to grow, though. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you draft Adisa Isaac today, he doesn't get any better. But Chop Robinson just has this elite what is going on ceiling, like just pure freak athlete type of ceiling. Adisa Isaac is the safer bet though, as far as that goes. And I can see the Commanders getting him. And then you also have edge Marshawn Nealon. I think he's literally Frank Clark. Like, this is probably the closest comp out of anybody that we're going to talk about in this video, where I literally think he's him. Like, height, weight, athletic profile, traits, literally Frank Clark. And he came in for a top 30 visit, so there's clear, strong interest there from the Commanders. You're limited to only 30 visits every offseason. All of these draftable players, you can only bring 30 in for visits. They used one on Marshawn Nealon, so there's some clear interest right there, and we could definitely use a Frank Clark. I know that we brought in Dorrance Armstrong Jr. I'm excited about him on one side, holding it down at the edge rusher position in an expanded role. He looked like he deserved more snaps for the Cowboys. He's getting that here. Can't wait to see him do with it, because if you're projecting his stats over the course of a starting level snaps, he will be a double-digit sack guy. I'm really excited about him. Got him for very cheap if he ends up being that guy too. High value contract right there. Then on the other side, I guess you got Clelin Ferrell as like your safe run stopper, but then you also have Dante Fowler as a situational pass rusher. Marshawn Nealon can easily fit in there as your Frank Clark. I think we could definitely still use another, especially long-term answer at edge rusher, because Clelin Ferrell, probably not long-term, one-year deal. Dante Fowler, even just age-wise, even though he's coming off of his best season of his career last year in 2022 with the Cowboys under Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr., so I'm expecting him to come and repeat that success here and terrorize quarterbacks in obvious passing down situations. One-year deal and getting up there in age, so we'll see. Marshawn Nealon could be him, or Adisa Isaac could easily be some answers for us at long-term edge rusher. Then tight end Ben Sinnott, literally Sam Laporta. I've seen some people even say, literally just Google Ben Sinnott comp. You see people say he's a blend of George Kittle and Travis Kelce. He's this and that. I think literally Sam Laporta, and so I think he's a great tight end. You could argue maybe he should have gone in the first round. I really like his potential. I've already mocked him to us in a mock draft like weeks ago. Really love Ben Sinnott. I would love to get him. There's no directly reported interest from us to him. Well, anything significant outside of like combine and things like that. No top 30 visit, no dinner or anything like that. But I think he would fit what we need. Again, we need tight end, dog. I'm sorry. I love Armani Rogers' potential. Love him. I think he could literally be a Darren Waller, but that's a big if right now. He's showing flashes, but we still got to see it. Cole Turner, love him as a contested catch guy, but he's never really going to get open on his own, and we still got to see him improve as a blocker. Big question mark. Love his talent. Still a question mark. The only sure things we have in the tight end room are Zach Ertz and John Bates, and that's because of their blocking and their ability to make catches, even though they're not going to give you any yak yardage after that. Ben Sinnott comes in and is literally the only real true dual threat tight end that we have right now. Unless Armani Rogers or Cole Turner learn how to block really well, and unless somehow Zach Ertz can go back 5 years in time, or John Bates can somehow magically just find some random juice that he can take the Space Jam halftime water that Bugs Bunny was giving out, I don't really see any potential dependable dual threat tight ends just yet. Again, I hope my boy Armani Rogers can become literally Darren Waller, but Ben Sinnott would give us our best opportunity the day that he's drafted to be our true dual threat tight end, that when he's on the field, he doesn't signal, okay, we're obviously passing the ball because this guy's a pass catching tight end. Or in John Bates' case, when he's on the field, we're more than likely running the ball. And even if we don't, I mean, you throw it to him, yeah, he may catch it for a 7-yard gain, and that's it. He's not going anywhere else. So I would love to get a Ben Sinnott. Linebacker Junior Colson from Michigan, absolutely love him. And you know, his literal comp for me, somebody that Adam Peters already drafted for the 49ers, Dre Greenlaw. Elite coverage linebacker the day he steps in, and I did a full breakdown on him in my predictive mock draft as well. So if you want to do that, go check that out if you want like a full deep dive into his strengths and weaknesses. But long story short, Bobby Wagner, like I've already explained, is your true Mike linebacker right now, your run stopper, your quarterback of the defense. He's going to have to depend on his instincts right now as coverage goes, because, you know, his body just isn't there anymore as much as it used to be. He's still great in coverage, but it's more so in the Sean Lee effect, where it's more instincts and knowing what's going to happen ahead of time and being able to see the future than he's just a freak athlete anymore. He's kind of lost a lot of that. Still an athlete, but lost a lot of it. Then you have Frankie Louvu. solid in coverage, but he's such a great run stopper and an elite pass rusher up the middle, literally just blowing up guards. Most linebackers not only are afraid to do that, but just simply can't do it physically. You want him rushing the passer up the middle as much as possible. Then again, Jamin Davis is literally going to be used like an edge rusher. Like, he may be on the outside shoulder of Dorrance Armstrong Jr. quite a bit this upcoming season, like they did with Michael Parsons for Dorrance Armstrong Jr. last year in Dallas. So we need like a true, like the one trait that our linebacker core is really missing, like an elite level player at, is coverage right now. Now, if you want to argue that Jeremy Chin is going to be like a bigger hybrid safety linebacker that can cover, then maybe you have that. But Junior Colson comes in and he can be bred into a true Mike linebacker, run stopper, quarterback of the defense type of guy. But in year one, while Bobby Wagner's still here, he can focus on being an elite cover linebacker, and then over time he can start to take over as the true Mike and also still keep that elite coverage in him. Then you have linebacker Edgerrin Cooper. To me, he's basically just an even rawer Tremaine Edmonds coming out of college, because Tremaine Edmonds, elite athlete, but was raw coming out. I think Edgerrin Cooper is even a little bit more raw than Tremaine Edmonds was coming out of college, but the ceiling is clearly really high. And I was seeing reports last night that were very interested in Edgerrin Cooper. I could easily see us going him there for the same reason that I said Junior Colson. Bring him in. He can immediately contribute as an elite cover linebacker year one, and then you start to mold him into that true Mike quarterback of the defense linebacker over time, especially if you don't plan on re-signing Bobby Wagner next year. Then you have the only tackle that I could even make a slight argument for taking somewhere 36 or not even 36, 40th overall at best, in my opinion, is Kingsley Samataya. He's basically a very raw Penei Sewell, which is literally his cousin, so that's an easy comp to make. But his ceiling is crazy high, but he's far more raw coming out of college than Penei Sewell was. So maybe you can go there as your potential left tackle. You start Cornelius Lucas until Kingsley is ready to go. Now we're going on to our fourth tier. Now we're to the tier of guys where you trade back to later in the second round. You maybe don't wait till the third round, but maybe you take that 40th overall pick, trade back to somewhere in the late 40s, early 50s, and then take one of these guys. First up, I have offensive tackle Patrick Paul. I think he has an Orlando Brown ceiling. I wouldn't necessarily say that's literally his comp, because it's going to take a lot of things, a lot of refinement in a lot of different areas to get that out of him. But I think he can literally end up being Orlando Brown if that ends up working out. And he's Chris Paul's brother, who's already a left guard on our team. And Chris Paul even went out of his way at the Senior Bowl to, ask Adam Peters, you looking at my brother? You know what I'm saying? You see him? So there's probably some interest there from Adam Peters with Chris Paul bringing that to his attention. Then you also have wide receiver Malachi Corley, one of my favorite receivers in this entire draft. I think he's literally going to be Deebo Samuel, like quite literally. And you know who loves Deebo Samuel and knows Deebo Samuel just as good as anybody else. Assistant general manager of the 49ers, Adam Peters, who is now our general manager here for the Commanders. So that's a strong connection there. He's seen firsthand how valuable Deebo Samuel can be to an offense. I wouldn't be surprised if he wants to try to recreate that magic here, especially since we lost Curtis Samuel in free agency. So he could come in and basically step into that get the ball out of the backfield role like a Curtis Samuel, a chess piece that you don't know what he's going to be. A running back this play, technically, screens, wide receiver, deep ball threat, whatever. You just never know. So I can see Malachi Corley easily being a pick for us, especially if we trade back, but I'd be willing to take him at 40th overall. I'm not going to lie. I'm that high on Malachi Corley. And then lastly, you have cornerback Ennis Ragshaw Jr. I think he could literally be who came out of the draft last year, DJ Turner. I think that's a really close comp to him. I think he could be a really good player. If we're talking about a ceiling comp, maybe we can talk about somebody else, but right now, I think he's just so close to being DJ Turner with his athleticism. I could see that being a guy that maybe we target later in the fourth round if we trade back at cornerback, but there's no reported interest or connections there, any significant reported interest or connections with the Commanders yet. And then the last tier we have is wait until the third round or later for edge rusher Chris Braswell. I think he could end up being a Harold Landry coming out of college. We had a top 30 visit with him. You have tight end Jared Wiley, and arguably one of the highest ceilings of any of these guys that I have going in the third round or later, because I think he's literally a healthy Hunter Henry, dog. Like, I can see it. And I saw a lot of reports leading up to the draft that some people think he could end up being the second tight end taken only after Brock Bowers. Now, his betting odds said that he was like fifth in odds of being the second tight end taken, but a lot of people were saying through talking to people in NFL circles, they feel like Jared Wiley's the second best tight end in this class, and it's hard for me to disagree. I literally think he's a healthy prime Chargers version of Hunter Henry, and we also had a top 30 visit with him. Strong interest there. Then you have edge Jalix Hunt. I think he's literally Robert Mathis, not only in play style, athletic build, and things like that, but also from the fact that both of those guys are coming from the FCS rather than the FBS, the normal college level that we see these guys play in. He's coming from a very low level against low level of competition, but his ceiling is sky high. You take him now, and I did super in-depth, like almost talking about him for 15 minutes alone in my mock drafts when I drafted him in my mock drafts, from the one yesterday morning and the one before that. So if you want a deeper dive into him, why I say that he also has some blend of Khalil Mack to his game, go check that out. But we brought him in for a top 30 visit. There's clear strong interest there. His name has started to grow a little bit of momentum heading into the draft, so you may have to take him sooner than I thought. I'm hoping, I mean, originally I thought he was maybe a 5th round pick weeks ago. Then I was starting to think, okay, maybe 4th round. And then I'm starting to think now you got to take him 100th at the latest, our final 3rd round pick. And if you really, really love him and you truly are willing to wait to just basically his rookie season, he's going to play special teams and be a situational pass rusher. Like I said in my mock draft, I think at worst, floor-wise, he's O'Shane Zimenez of the Giants, where he's a great situational pass rusher year 1. But I think ultimately, as he learns to become a better edge-setting run defender, and he starts to, show some strength in that area right there, he can hold it down on the edge, set that edge and things like that. I think he can literally end up being Robert Mathis with some blends of Khalil Mack, but you're going to have to wait until maybe at soonest his 2nd season. Are you willing to take a guy that you got to wait at least a year for in the 3rd round? We'll see. Banking on his ceiling. Then you have cornerback Cam Hart. I literally comped him to Charles Tillman. I did a whole breakdown of his strengths and weaknesses and talked about how he literally held Marvin Harrison Jr. to what I believe 3 catches, 39 yards, or 30-something yards and no touchdowns when he played him. Like, I mean, he did Marvin Harrison Jr., dirty in their matchup when Ohio State played Notre Dame. And we brought him in for a top 30 visit, so there's strong interest there. Do not be surprised at all if we end up getting Cam Hart. If I had to bet money on one guy that we would get out of all of the names that we talked about in this video, I think Cam Hart is probably in my top 3 most likely. Then you have offensive tackle Karan Amagaji. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. He's the guy from Yale, and basically a higher ceiling George Fant, in my opinion. He also had a top 30 visit. Maybe we look there at him. I'm really interested in his potential. Then you have tight end Jatavion Sanders, and I know a lot of people are like, there's no way he'll make it to the 3rd round. And if he doesn't, I'm cool with it. I'm not that big on Jatavion Sanders. I would like to get him, like, he's nice. But I would definitely prefer the more dual threat type of guys. I would definitely take my chance with a Jared Wiley or a Ben Sinnott, me personally, over just a pure pass catcher Jatavion Sanders. Especially since if you're going to be a pure pass catcher, if you're not going to be a freak athlete, it does concern me a little bit. He has a little bit of yak to his game. He has a little bit of wiggle, can get open, but he's not like just this freak athlete. And if you're going to be a purely pass catching tight end that doesn't really offer much blocking, I just need you to be a little bit more athletic than that. But I do potentially see him as like a Dalton Kincaid type of person, and we brought him in for a top 30 visit, so there's probably some strong interest there. Then you have tight end Theo Johnson, no top 30 visit. The only player that I'm mentioning in this last category of wait until the 3rd round or later that we don't have a top 30 visit with, and it's literally just because he's an absolute freak of nature, one of the highest raw athletic scores of all time, especially at the tight end position. He's literally the Chop Robinson of tight ends. I don't know what Penn State was doing over there with all of these freak athletes that they just never developed, but hey man, I'm taking my chances on Theo Johnson, I'm not gonna lie. And then lastly, you also have offensive tackle Blake Fisher. My problem with him is that he doesn't offer you much of a ceiling. Yeah, he comes in with a decent floor, but I don't know how much room he has to grow to become a really good starter at this NFL level. So I don't really think it's necessarily worth taking him here, but that's where he's projected to go. And we had a top 30 visit. That's the only reason I threw his name in here. But out of every player we've talked about in this video so far, Blake Fisher is the guy that I probably like the least, probably by far. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Let me know how you feel about all these players I discussed in this video. Please make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like. Let me know which players you want the most, especially that I talked about in this video. But if there's anybody out there that I didn't mention, let me know who you want and why. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points, any of my comps especially, or my comps too rich. That's kind of the point. That's why I said I wanted to have a little fun. I am reaching with a lot of these comps, but those are those guys' ceilings. I'm not necessarily saying realistic comps. These are their ceilings, but let me know how you feel about that. And of course, make sure you pull up to the draft live stream this evening, because I will be live streaming all of rounds 2 and 3. Super excited. We have 5 picks, so let Adam Peters cook. Let's get it. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.